Welcome to Shone's Thoughts, Afterhours. The first thing you might recognize or notice right now is that the video that I'm showing, which I'm showing a video because having challenges with my podcast hosting on Apple and Spotify and Audible and all that lovely stuff seems to be challenged right now because they don't want to accept the money that I have in PayPal without confirming that I have a credit card associated with the account. So, all others, for example, the ones that I utilize PayPal for, they don't seem to have issues, but this one seems to have. So therefore, right now, my only solution is to, as I've mentioned before, pay for a whole year, which would be $450 approximately USD, so that I could therefore host to give all of my podcasts away. Because that's essentially what I'm doing when I create these podcasts. I'm not really expecting any money to come in from this. It's simply me sharing, whether it's the story that I'll share tonight or some tips or tricks or experiences that I've had that are beneficial, positive and uplifting. That's always how I've tried to view my channel, is creating something that was beautiful and uplifting, whether it was photography or all the other videos I've done. And so anyways, going back to all that, Shone's Thoughts is in video because of all those scenarios that I just talked about right now. And After Hours, is in video because I'm going to upload this to YouTube and Rumble as a podcast or an extension of the podcast I've already been doing, just like I did with the After Hours previously. And so perhaps one day this will make it back to there, and maybe it will by the time you've heard this. Who knows? But that's why we are having videos. And then the next noticeable thing, other than the video, is that it's not dark out right now. It's actually pretty light out, even though it's almost 10 o'clock. Out here in the real world, I'll say, organic nature all around me, the light is staying light for a pretty long time, even though it's already fallen behind the mountain behind me. It's still quite bright. And so I essentially just wanted to jump in to talk about what I wanted to talk and share about tonight while it was essentially happening or otherwise ending. And what I mean by that is the fire itself was kind of like tonight a burning ceremony, burning things and ideas and essentially books that had or perhaps contained energy of past events. There was one book called The Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus. And this is a book that I purchased, not this exact copy. I gave the exact copy away after I had received this copy. I didn't necessarily need two books, one with all the notes from the relationship that I had purchased that book for. See, when I was 19 years old, in order to save my relationship, I went out and got a book called Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus. And I really did put so much effort into trying to understand the fair gender. And so anyways, this is one of the books that I decided that I would, burn because it represented energy that perhaps was still associated to that relationship and to the trauma that relationship once upon a time, because I've moved past it, but once upon a time did hold on me. So releasing that book felt great. And then I also let go of and burnt a book called The Secret of Gratitude Journal, because I had gotten that book at a time when, I was a different person, and I had bought 3 of them. And yeah, I kind of wanted all of us to do it, and yet I was really the only one to do it. And so I had essentially only started that book, and then later I came back maybe last year and tried to continue it, but I just didn't want it, so I let that one go. And then I let another book go that I was working on with someone. They had their copy and I had my copy, and together we sat in so many different places and we worked on this book. And this book was essentially a book about self-mastery in a sense, getting to know yourself. And I definitely got to know myself while I was working on that book. There was many questions in there that I wasn't happy with the question, so in order to write my answer, I had to sometimes rewrite the question, being more perhaps uplifting. And then I also burnt ideas, books, and burnt 3 of those. Books that I had put a lot of effort and lessons. I burnt a book that was all my notes on healing. See, partially because that still was from a very long time ago. It's probably before I even joined the Global Information Network. And so there's a lot of notes that I've put in along the way that, I already know. And if I ever need to know that stuff again, I'll be able to connect with it, not necessarily have to cart it around with me wherever I go in a book. And then I guess the subjective or, conspicuous one that I burnt was just a book on geometric proofs. I decided I wasn't really interested in carrying a math book around to a world or a reality where different laws perhaps really did exist than they do in reality. I don't know if that makes any sense, but I just decided, hey, I don't really need to carry that weight around either. And so it leads me to the video of what we're watching, and it's essentially those books burning down. I'm actually gonna be all safe and stuff and move that more into the middle. So I did that today, just recently, and that's, I guess, kind of why I wanted to start it, although a week ago it would have been dark by now, but we are getting to the longest day of the year, and today was an amazing day. Amazing, simply amazing. I was able to witness, first of all, in the morning time, these 2 birds having a mating dance. And the woman bird, I'll think, or, the fairer of the 2 genders, it was sitting on a rock and it was bouncing as the other bird was like doing a mating ritual, jumping in the water and then spinning around and then jumping up, and all the while it's singing some music, and you have this other bird and it's just like bopping up and down. That was extraordinary. I saw, of course, a black squirrel today, and there was a lot of all these small birds, and as I was sitting on the riverside, several of them would occasionally come into my view and do all of their musical melodies just sitting there doing them for me, or just bouncing around and looking around. And I also saw a woodpecker, those birds with the red head that keep tapping their nose on the wood. And then actually, if we're sticking on birds, the most amazing thing, I saw one of those eagles. I don't know why they call them bald eagles, but an eagle with the white head. And it flew right across the river where I'm at right now. I mean, it just flew down the river a little bit above my head, but down through the river. And I was able to watch it in slow motion. Just realizing that being out here, I'm connected with so much of the wildlife. And on top of it, to make things even so much better, I had a skunk visit my camp. And, I really do believe that animals, and especially animals, can feel. They can feel if there's fear. They can feel if there's excitement or ill intent, perhaps. And so I just sat and watched the skunk circumnavigate the outsides of the camp that I was in. And then it came over and came up through around my tent. And interestingly enough, before it had even come just in behind my tent, because I wasn't paying attention to it, I'd already gotten up and walked over to the other side of the camp for an unimportant reason. I think something to take some clothes off the line that I had put up. And so I was already prepared to do that. And then, yeah, that was just awesome. It was awesome to watch the skunk kind of do its thing out in the wilderness, a wild skunk. And don't worry, I'm not like a Pokemon catcher. I don't want to throw a ball and make that skunk my friend. I just gave it its space to do what it was doing. And what it was doing was it was searching for garbage left over at the camp. And I think it would often find garbage. So it essentially did a pattern across these two camps and then finished the pattern and then went back the way that it had come. You know, I guess that's interesting that me being here, because as I'm being here, no one else is being here. There's been other people who've shown up in the other camps around me. And some whitewater rafting people use the camp beside me as well to get off the river. And yeah, it did its whole routine. I just watched it, and it was really enjoyable to see its movement and to see it out there, and also to be very aware that if it was fearful or scared, that it could spray. And yet I recognized that I had zero fear towards it, or any animal for that fact. And of course, like I said, as I was just doing, I was practicing precaution because I was removing myself from its path and being on the other side of it. And I wasn't trying to shoo it away in fear to get it to react. I just allowed it to do its thing. And you know, it's kind of just like a bee, for example. The bee doesn't want to end its life by putting its stinger in you, but if it feels fear, then that's what it does. And so I think even with bees, perhaps, a beekeeper doesn't get stung by the bees because the beekeeper's in that bee outfit. And it has zero fear because it knows that the person within the bee protector clothing knows it won't be hurt, so therefore it has no fear. Therefore the bees don't sense fear. So yeah, a very amazing day. Probably bees. Oh, and I also saw this giant dark green, like military green slug that was making its way somewhere very slowly. I felt like doing a do no thing video, which, by the way, I perhaps recorded a video for that. See, one of the things that I have created and I love creating are my do no thing meditative experiences. It's not about using them as or for meditation. It's more about just experiencing the music to the video to the actual frame. Kind of like art, I'd say. I imagine perhaps one day in the future, my do no thing experiences being put on a gallery wall in a TV, a 55-inch, for example, or 43 or whatever size we decide on, but doing it horizontally, like flipping the TV, so I mean it's the other way, I guess, portrait frame, and then filling that portrait frame with the videos that I do with the music, and just being in a state of doing no thing. Not a noun, not a being, just being in presence. Without thinking, without moving, without, worrying about what we have to do next. Just being in that moment of space, allowing the music and the image and whatever it is else that I put in there to have its effect upon you. And so anyways, I stopped doing those videos quite a while ago because I lost my Movavi program. I lost my subscription because resources ran out. And I'm really expecting those resources to resume so that I can continue videotaping little experiences like that as I did today in a beautiful scene by the riverside with the light and, the whitewatered rapid Yeah, and the sun setting, and actually it wasn't really setting, it was mid-evening, I guess. Yeah, anyways, it was getting close to the evening. So yeah, like I said, this podcast today is really about a lot of different positive things. And it's in alignment with the video that I was watching yesterday or perhaps today that essentially talked about being positive and having positive thoughts. And by having positive thoughts and spending more attention on positivity, we essentially therefore allow things to manifest perhaps a little bit more easier. And I think that that's what everything's about, is making things a little more easier and accessible with each thing that we figure out how to do better. Each thing we try to improve to be better in our lives. And yeah, I think that that's a big leap today, having the experience of all those animals releasing the energy from those books, and of course just enjoying, working with fire, like building it and allowing it to essentially, metaphorically and physically speaking, burn the past. Not burn it completely, but let go of those things in my past that I still hold on to, that no longer have relevance. Like I kept the 3 books, for example, that I recently bought that are completely blank, signifying, of course, the writing's on the wall, that I'm going to go out and write a new story. And while I will bring characters from the old version of me forward, should we choose, and I say we as in we, me and you, or you and I, then we will do that together on an equal or more steady footing than perhaps I had in the past. Yeah, I'm really excited about the possibilities of doing more podcasts and driving around and living life, not just on, off the grid campsites. This is fun and all, but I also want to do them in like group campsites. I want to do them at, conferences or workshops, wherever it is that I choose to, share that my energy and space with. And for us, those people that are listening to this, to get together and, imagine a different world together. So perhaps we could help jumpstart that into coming into fruition, being realized, more than just an idea, more than just a blueprint, but bringing it into whatever it is that we choose to do. Whether it's, the idea of building communities out in the forest, self-sustaining communities which are building an adventure camp together, or as I said last night, that whole idea of the healing centers, like getting people together to revitalize different areas like the Harrison Hot Springs or any type of hot spring area, and bringing it together so that more people can utilize it for the benefits of healing, relaxing, letting go. Like healing and hot springs is probably a really good thing, with the exception of the addition of chlorine. But the actual hot springs themselves, relaxing your muscles, amazing, allowing those minerals to essentially diffuse into your skin, wonderful. Most importantly though, relaxing and allowing, the day to wash away without the addition of alcohol, I would say. That was the one thing that I was perplexed by when I went to Harrison Hot Springs, is that there were a lot of people drinking open bottled liquor and just like hanging out as if it was a giant party, versus the hot springs I always felt were a healing modality. Some place to relieve the pressure of the muscles, but also infuse all those rare earth minerals into our body. And, drinking alcohol and having a good time, I guess, is, good for some people, but it almost was as if the entire pool especially because the lower pool below me was the adult pool. That's what they were interested in doing, courting and drinking. And yeah, so that was just an interesting experience. And like I said, I would love to be able to turn some of these areas into healing centers, or just creating brand new healing centers, taking spaces and turning them into healing centers. I know I'm now repeating what I was talking about last night, but I'm really passionate about, seeing and witnessing the changes that I think are potentially possible. I'm just going to put this box that I created. I don't know if we're going to stay long enough on this particular podcast. What are we at so far? Yeah, we're at 21 minutes. We'll have to see how fast this burns. I took a box of mine and I filled it with a whole bunch of pine cones, and oh, here comes the squirrel, not the squirrel, the skunk again. I'm not going to call him over. I'm going to imagine he's going to go through the forest on his own way, going back to home. And he's very unhappy because there are no dirty campers that have left their trash here again. Actually, I noticed there was a sign up, another sign, asking people to stop leaving their trash. I was so surprised. The camp that's a few bits down from me, there was someone who stayed there, and after they left, there was this giant black garbage bag. As if, people are responsible to come pick up your garbage. It was just very confusing to me. And a group of road crew people, they came by and they collected the garbage that was up on the highway. And then they were kind of looking in and peeking into the camp that I had. And then after that, these two fisher wildlife officer peoples, they came over to the camp as well, and they were wanting to see if there was anyone who was fishing or if I was fishing. And so I have no desire to fish. Like, the fish can stay in the water and have a good life. I don't even want to fish for the fun of it. That's creating a lot of smoke. I'm having a funny, the fire pit is smoking a fat one. Yeah, that's actually a lot of smoke. But I even imagine this particular video as I could, with my Do No Thing videos, cut out the audio and replace it with some crazy beautiful music by Chris Collins, and just make this a video where we do no thing. And yeah, I really do look forward to resubscribing to Movavi ASAP. That's, I think, another $250 USD. So yeah, there's a lot of really good reasons if you're thinking of, making changes. A lot of amazing reasons, even just to sit here and watch this thing burn with a meditation video. Like, I'm sure I'll pick the perfect part of this video. There could be one with the smoking and then now one with the burning. I think these are really cool looking shape to be burning right now. And so I think there's art in almost everything that we do. And creating, of course, does seem to be God's gift to us, is that we have the ability to create, and however it is that we see to create, and that by sharing those creations, we inspire other people to create as well. And wouldn't that be amazing if we're all just living in a world where we're all spending our time, our productive work time, creating, the baker baking, the cook cooking, the mother mothering, the house builder house building. And that's one of the amazing benefits of perhaps having or being able to utilize AI, is because the AI can help us with those jobs that are more repetitive, yet still allow us to maintain our creative ability to create. Anyways, I'm going to leave it here for now, and thank you so much. And whatever video that I have posted after this one, perhaps you want to watch that. There might be a good reason. Everything has a reason. And so sometimes I even go around changing the videos, the ones that are next recommended, just out of the blue. And sometimes I feel I may have a reason for that. The next one might be for you, or the next one, who knows? But, if you have any extra time, definitely consider that one. And if you don't, no problem, come back later. But definitely spam share this video to 10 of your friends on whatever platform that you want to share it on. I don't actually have any sort of meta programs, like no Instagram, no Facebook, so it'll have to be shared back to this YouTube video or Rumble or however it is that you're finding it. Even just text message. I found part of my voice by being able to simply share my videos that I was creating, uncertain whether or not they were going to be received by anyone, but just finding the courage just to share regardless of whether I got blocked or people ignored me. In the beginning, they would comment back, or at least some people would. By the end, hardly anyone would comment back when I sent them stuff. And so it led me to believe that, not ready yet, not in residence currently. Not that there's any sort of problem with anyone. I think that when we're ready to align, we will align with one another. When we're ready to receive, the gift will be there to be received by. And essentially me creating audios doesn't necessarily mean it's in the moment of now that it's going to be received. It could be a year from now, 2 years from now, a lifetime from now, that the message is received, but yet it was in me in a space right now to essentially have all these thoughts come together in this particular order that may or may not benefit you. Having just the thoughts and listening about a great day where I wasn't affected by, former versions of me's concern about what this or that or this. I'm not going to bring all that into this moment of now, but you get what I mean. And just to sit out here with that skunk as he fruitlessly searches for garbage from campers who weren't here, because this is my third night staying in this camp right now. And so there were other people who essentially stopped by for fishing. The fishermen, they missed those people, I guess. Fishermen and drinking beers and stuff like that. They missed all those people when they came to my camp to look around. But yet, they did go to the other camps around me. So, yeah, a lot of amazing things. Practiced washing and drying clothes, washing by the river, using the water to cleanse as opposed to, chemical soaps. And I even tried brushing it up, a little bit of a dirty part, brushing it up against a rock like they did in the olden days, perhaps. And because the water is constantly moving, and I went out to an area where the water is moving by, all the water that I essentially interact with is all swept and mixed into the giant scope of the filtering of the beautiful water. Yeah, and I was able to wash the clothes and make them clean with only using water. Imagine that water has the ability to clean, to cleanse. And that it's only all of the dyes and maybe even the dyes from all the soaps that we use that require that cleansing. That level of cleansing, I guess. Perhaps our natural state and the oils that even we create can all be removed from clothing if the clothing's actually organic and we're eating what we should be eating. Maybe we wouldn't release a lot of the body odors that we have if we weren't eating the stuff that we shouldn't be eating. And the shouldn't be eating means the things that our bodies don't necessarily like, that make us belch or cause indigestion. Perhaps belching and indigestion are simply an example of food that's not to be eaten. Maybe that's our body telling us what we should or should not be eating. I often kind of get the feeling that is. So when there's gas being passed, that maybe those gas are like, oh, that's not something you should be eating. Just like that Dr. Steve Gunman or something or other, he's talking about legumes, beans, for example, not being good for us because they have certain things in them. And, our body, in a lot of cases, when we eat beans or things that are made from beans, we have a lot of farting. Maybe that farting's an indication that we shouldn't be eating that food, that particular food, or at least not eating it in that much abundance. Yeah, now I'm going on, and I'm going to end this now. Thank you so much for sharing this, book burning in a good way of disconnecting from the past. Thank you so much for sharing your time and attention with me. And as you see, it has gotten dark out now. So I'm going to listen to the rest of my video by an amazing woman named Crystal. And yeah, I'm going to consider all of the amazing things that we are going to participate soon in. Just come over to Telegram. I have a channel on Telegram as well I put things up there. Or, of course, obviously come to Patreon and join the community, however it is you want to participate. Even if you just go along viewing all my posts and commenting and liking every post and you are a free member, I will so appreciate that. Because it's engagement with these platforms that supports the creator on the platform. Not just, all of that monetary stuff, but just viewing and commenting supports so much. And I'm very grateful every time I receive any sort of comment, even just an emoji. Going back onto that do no thing meditation, I suggested when I first started that, and I'll just end with this and perhaps the request to do this. But when you completed one of those, I encouraged the viewer to just put their favorite emoji, just to say they were here for that, and they finished that experience for 3 minutes. And I'm kind of curious as to how many people we could get all of their favorite emojis. That's all. No words, just finish the 3-minute do no thing. And if you want to go for cheating, or not cheating, but finding the easy way to approach it, I actually have 68-second versions of my do no thing videos when I originally started. Because it used to be that 90 seconds was a short. And so I even have shorts where I was trying to get under a minute. So go over to those things, and when you finish them, whatever one it is, there's lots of them, just leave your favorite emoji as a comment. And let's see how many people we can actually, utilize to have it finished. Perhaps, you never know. We'll be doing more of those soon, and perhaps we could even do them together when we meet. I think there's very creative ways that we could even create collaborative videos, in person, just doing interesting things. Anyways, have a wonderful evening. Thank you for joining me. And yeah, I think this fire was really cool. This After Hours really turned into an After Hours, and you got to join and share all of that beautiful smoke and fire and the original book burning as well. So thank you so much. It's been a pleasure and a definite honor that you've shared your attention with me and this beautiful fire.